Hello, I'm Kelly, and welcome back to Kelly Loves Books and Movies. I thought today I would go, since this is a pretty new channel, I would go through everything I read in 2023. I read 27 books. First off, this will kind of be in order, I guess. First off, the library book, Susan Orlean, which was one of my favorite books that I read in 2023. It was fascinating to read not only about the whole investigation of the fire of the Central Library in Los Angeles, but also just the history of the library system in Los Angeles and history of libraries in general. Fascinating read. Second book I read was Fair Warning, which was the last book in the Jack McAvoy part of the Harry Bosch universe. I started reading the Michael Connelly books in 2017, I think, and so last year I was really trying to get current and almost got there. Third book was Law of Innocence, which is a Lincoln Lawyer book. Liked it a lot, I think. I don't remember. This was January last year. I don't have that good of a memory. Winning Fixes Everything, How Baseball's Brightest Minds Created Sports' Biggest Mess, which was about the Houston Astros scandal and their whole banging on the trash can. Very interesting. I liked it. I did not love it. Then was The Last Chairlift by John Irving. John Irving is I wouldn't even say one of my favorite authors, but Prothero and Meany is one of my favorite books. I haven't read everything John Irving has written, but I read occasionally other things. I liked The Last Chairlift. It was long. John Irving is long. I don't know. I had mixed feelings, really. I mean, overall I liked the story, but just parts, I think the pacing was off. Parts I didn't like, parts I loved. Complicated book, but if you like John Irving and you haven't read it yet, you probably should read it. Pretty Good number one. An American Family Eats Tokyo. This I enjoyed very much. Oh no, that wasn't mine. It's a family that lives in, no, they didn't even live there. They went there a lot anyway. Just a family learning to eat different things in Tokyo. I think I gave it 3 stars, I think. Yeah, 3 stars. So I liked it, didn't love it. Ms. Adventure, My Wild Explorations in Science, Lava, and Life was the next book, which was a book about a woman who is studying volcanoes in geology, and was great. Boys in Oil, Growing Up Gay in a Fractured Land. Just a story about a guy who grew up gay in North Dakota. I mean, need I say more? Then it was Going Rogue, which was the 29th book in the Stephanie Plum series. Liked it, didn't love it. They're always fun reads, but I think as time is going on, they're not quite as good as the early ones. One of Us, the story of Anders Breivik and the massacre in Norway. This was also a fascinating book, sad, but it was interesting to learn about some of the kids involved in the youth group, just their whole lives, and many of them actually lost their life in the massacre, and just the whole background of the killer dude. Fascinating. Not necessarily a great book. Next up was Looking Up, the True Adventures of a Storm Chasing Weather Nerd. This was really good. It was a quick read. I think I gave it 3 stars, but I enjoy chasing storms like many people, so it was a fun read. Next up, We Were Once a Family, A Story of Love and Death and Child Removal in America. This was a great read. I gave 4 stars. It was about that couple that drove off the cliff and killed all their kids. It was less about them and more about the whole like the families of the biological families of the kids and the foster system and how they got there and how it continues. It was really sad and really complicated. I mean, foster care system in general, super complicated, and you just felt for all the families left behind of, the birth families of the kids that were left behind. Next up, I had Killers of the Flower Moon. I knew that the movie was going to be coming out, and I actually bought this a long time ago, knowing when they were still probably filming the movie, knowing it was coming out. The book is way better than the movie. Did like the movie, but yeah, fascinating. A lot of stuff that isn't covered in the movie, more about the whole investigation and the different agencies, and yeah, it's a great read. I suggest you read it if you like those sort of things. Then I read Happy at Any Cost, The Revolutionary Vision and Fatal Quest of Zappos CEO Tony Hsieh. Another fascinating book. Sad what it came to, but he was a fascinating guy. And I liked reading about, up until, his life kind of went off the rails. Fascinating. Next up, Desert Solitaire, Edward Abbey. I liked the book a lot. I did not love it. There were certain stories as he was telling that I loved. Other stories I got bored. Ooh, sorry. After that, I read Guilty Pleasures. It's the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series, the first book. I haven't gotten to the second book yet. I probably will. It's just a fun, quick read. Eventually, I will probably get through all those books as well, but they're not like top of my reading list. The next book I read, Island on Fire. I went to Iceland last year, and to prepare, I wanted to read more about volcanoes in Iceland. This wound up being one of my favorite books of the year. Great stories, great history. The extraordinary story of a forgotten volcano that changed the world. So yeah, it talks about, it says talks about more than one volcano actually. It actually talked about quite a few of the volcanoes in the history of Iceland. Good read. If you're going to Iceland and you've never been there before, read this first. Next up, I had Kitchens of the Great Midwest. I don't know what to say about this. I really wanted to love this book. I liked it. It started out great, but the end of it, I don't know. I don't necessarily like where the character went at the end, but overall, I would say it was good, and I didn't waste my time, but I think it's one of those where you're hoping for something great and it's not, so you're kind of disappointed, but it isn't. It's still not bad, and you still liked it, but still, it kind of was a little bit of a disappointment to me. Next up, When the World Didn't End, a memoir. It is Guinevere Turner's autobiography. She grew up in a cult, and not even like a Christian cult. It was like just a cult, and it was pretty fascinating. Definitely if you're into reading about cults and those sort of things, I would give it a read. Next up, The Dark Hours, Michael Connelly, and Desert Star, Michael Connelly. Continuing on the Harry Bosch universe. I like Renee Ballard. I hope we see much more of her in the future. Kind of getting tired of Harry, not gonna lie. But I really like the character of Renee, so hopefully we see more of her. Next up was Dumb Money, the GameStop short squeeze and ragtag group of amateur traders that brought Wall Street to its knees. I still haven't seen the movie, but I knew the movie was coming out, so I wanted to read the book first. It was fascinating because I remember as the whole GameStop thing was going on and having no clue what anyone was talking about. So the book, going through it and explaining it and then thinking back to that time, it was fascinating. The book was good. I don't know about the movie. Haven't seen it yet. The next book I read was Unreasonable Hospitality, The Remarkable Power of Giving People More Than They Expect. I really like this book. I do work in hospitality part-time, so this was a great look into the best restaurants in the world and how they handle not just, the hospitality part of it, not just the food. And it was interesting. Lots of good ideas. It was, good book. Read it if you're interested in such things. Next up, The Essential Dear Dara, Writings on Local Characters and Memorable Places. More of a local Minnesota thing. A bunch of just columns that have appeared by Dara in different forms through the years. Pretty good. The next book I read was Someday is Today, 22 Simple Actionable Ways to Propel Your Creative Life. I really like this book. I had never really heard of Matthew Dicks before till I saw him on something not too long ago and thought I needed to read the book. He basically, if you don't know, he does the Moth storytelling. He's like a champion, involved in that right now. He does a lot of things. His way of thinking comes from almost, being murdered in a robbery. And so just the whole different way you think about things and time and using your time if something like that happens to you. It's fascinating. I got a lot of great ideas from that. The next book I read, Gambler: Secrets from a Life at Risk by Billy Walters. And he is basically a sports gambler and just talked through his whole life. Not even just sports gambler. He was a professional gambler. Started some companies too that, were pretty big and that helped with the betting and coming up with things. It was fascinating, and I still don't understand how okay, that's not true. I understand how sports betting works, but I don't understand how people can, the big time gamblers will bet millions on a game and they'll have 25 different bets. I don't know how you keep track of all that. I don't know how he kept track of it. But he's one of those people, I guess, that have the mind to not even, the mathematics of it all and can just do it like that. It was fascinating. The last book I read for 2023 was The Massacre at El Mozote, A Parable of the Cold War. This is about a massacre in El Salvador in the 80s, around the time of all the Civil War. I spent last January sometime in El Salvador and this January as well in El Salvador. So being there and just being around all the people, I felt like I wanted to know more about that time in history, in their history. I heard different stories from people that I know there that are older and who lived through that. So, I felt like I needed, and I have about 2 more books that are on my list to read about that time. So hopefully I will get to them someday. Not going to back to El Salvador in 2024. It is 2024. Next January. I'm unfortunately not going back to El Salvador, but it's probably maybe later in the year next year. That is all I read this year. I get my years mixed up. Whatever. 27 books. My favorite was probably the library book, the library one. But I also loved Killers of the Flower Moon, and the Iceland book Island on Fire. Still plugging away at the Harry, well, in spoiler alert, in 2024 this year, I am now finally current with all the Michael Connelly books. So as soon as something comes out, I can read it again. Anyway, thank y'all for watching. See y'all next time.